Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. On today's episode of Thinking in English, let's learn some new ways to talk about and describe being ill and sick in English. Find the full transcript on my blog, thinkinginenglish.blog, or check out my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast, for more excellent content. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen my Insta story about feeling rough and losing my voice last week. I had to cancel my scheduled classes and wasn't able to record podcasts because it was too difficult for me to talk. And a few days later, I came down with a cold. In fact, you might be able to hear now that my voice is still not perfect. How can we describe illness in English? Well, we have simple phrases like I'm sick or I'm ill. But what if you want to be more specific or more detailed? There are so many different illnesses with different characteristics and different symptoms. What if you want to talk about how serious your illness is? Or what kind of sickness? Or what if you want to talk specifically about the start, the middle, or the end of being ill? One approach is to use the exact name of your illness. I have influenza, or I have bronchitis. Or you could talk about your specific symptoms. I have a headache. I have a sore throat. Or I have a blocked nose. You could also try to describe the kind of pain you are feeling. However, you might notice that English speakers tend to use a lot of phrases and idioms to talk about being ill, especially when we don't know exactly what is wrong with us, when we are just feeling bad. There are many different expressions English speakers rely on to communicate our condition. So, why should you learn to talk about being ill? Why is it important? Well, I hope you never get ill when you are in a foreign country, but it is quite likely that you might feel sick or injured or hurt or ill abroad. I've had allergic reactions to insect bites in France when I was a child. I hurt my ankle in Malaysia. I got an upset stomach in India. I had a sore eye in Taiwan. And not to mention the many colds I've come down with while living in Japan. Getting ill is part of life. So, learning to talk about how you are feeling is an essential skill to learn for anyone living, working, studying, or even traveling abroad. Describing illnesses accurately can help staff in drugstores or doctors and nurses in hospitals to treat you correctly. It can help you explain to your friends or employer why you need to stay home. And in general, it can help make your English more interesting. So, today I'm going to introduce you all to some of the most useful and common English phrases and expressions to talk about being ill. I'm not going to mention actual illnesses or technical words for symptoms. Um, I'll leave a link to a different blog with some common illnesses explained in English. You can find that on the Thinking in English blog. But instead, I'm going to focus on idioms and common sayings. Actually, you should also check out the article I wrote on how to describe pain in English as well, which is also a really useful guide and very relevant to this topic. How to describe getting ill in English. Let's start with some ways to describe getting ill in English. Use these to talk about the start of a sickness, when you are feeling unwell, but maybe unsure exactly what is wrong. I feel rough. Rough is a common way of saying unpleasant and unwell in English. You can use this phrase right at the start of an illness. Sometimes you wake up after a bad night's sleep and feel a little rough. You could also say, I feel out of sorts, I feel unwell, or I feel off. I feel rubbish. As your illness starts to get worse, you can start to use stronger vocabulary. I guess that you know your body is not in perfect condition, but maybe you're unsure exactly what is wrong with you. Then you can say, I feel rubbish. Rubbish is a British English word, which I personally use all of the time, meaning bad. Actually, any word meaning bad could be used here, such as I feel awful or I feel terrible. I'm not feeling great. Sometimes English speakers like to talk in the negative. For example, saying, I'm not feeling great, instead of saying, I feel rubbish. Why? Well, using a phrase like I'm not feeling great is an excellent way of saying something negative without sounding too serious. When I was ill last weekend, people kept telling me to go to the hospital or asking me how I was feeling and if I was okay. I found it quite annoying because I just had a cold. Using a phrase like I'm not feeling great is a good way to tell someone you are ill without making them worried. I'm not feeling 100%. Similar to the I'm not feeling great sentence, I'm not feeling 100% is an understatement. It usually means that you are feeling rubbish, but you don't want anyone to know. British people are especially likely to understate their illnesses. We don't like to admit when we are feeling rough. So if you hear a British person say, I'm not feeling great, or I'm not feeling 100%, they probably mean they are really sick. Feeling under the weather. Feeling under the weather is a common idiom and phrase which is used all the time, especially in the UK. It means you're not feeling well. Moreover, it is also a common understatement used to make your condition sound less negative and less serious than it really is. I think I'm coming down with something. I think I'm coming down with something is another phrase to talk about feeling bad. However, use this when you are certain you are getting ill. You can come down with the flu, come down with a bug, and come down with a cold. It's coming down with any kind of illness, coming down with something. How to describe being ill in English. So, next, let's look at a few phrases to talk about being ill. There are probably hundreds of different options you could include here. So, I've just selected 5 general phrases which can be used to describe common symptoms of colds and the flu. Of course, I'd recommend you search online and send me a message on Instagram if you want to know more specific terms. Clogged up or bunged up. One of the most annoying symptoms of a cold is being clogged up or bunged up. These are both alternatives to saying blocked nose. It is when you can't breathe through your nose as it is completely clogged up or bunged up. By far, this is my least favorite part about being sick. My is killing me. This is one of the most versatile phrases to describe feeling unwell. It is a way of saying something hurts or is in a lot of pain. If you have a headache, my head is killing me. If you have a sore throat, my throat is killing me. If you have an upset stomach, my stomach is killing me. You can check out the podcast I did on describing pain for more similar options. Can't keep anything down. Another common symptom of many illnesses is throwing up, vomiting, and being sick. It's when the content of your stomach comes back up out of your throat and out of your mouth. Very unpleasant. Many years ago, I came down with a stomach bug, and whatever I ate or drank would not stay in my stomach. I couldn't keep anything down. Faint, lightheaded, dizzy. Faint, lightheaded, and dizzy all have similar meanings. It's when you feel weak, and especially as if you are going to pass out or lose consciousness. Sometimes people feel lightheaded if they don't eat all day, or they feel faint after seeing blood. Bedridden. If you can't leave your bed due to having a serious illness, you are bedridden. You are too weak and sick to get up. You are bedridden. How to describe getting better in English. So we've described getting ill and being ill. Next, let's discuss how to describe getting better. It is important to tell people you are no longer ill because you don't want them to worry. So how can we do this? On the mend. My voice is currently on the mend. It's not perfect, not fully recovered, but it is getting better. On the mend is a great phrase to describe being over the worst of a sickness. If you are on the mend, you're not fully recovered, but you are getting better. I've got over it. Now you are fully recovered. You got over it. The illness is over and you have successfully got back to your normal condition. Hopefully by next week, I will have fully gotten over my cold. Back on your feet. Back on your feet is another way of saying fully recovered. When you are ill, you should rest and spend time in bed. Once you are back on your feet, you have gotten over your illness. A clean bill of health. Finally, sometimes you need to go to the doctor to get a health check. Perhaps you've recently been ill, something doesn't feel quite right, or you just want a checkup. If a doctor gives you a clean bill of health, it means you are completely fine and there is nothing wrong with you. So here is today's final thought. On today's episode of Thinking in English, I've tried to give you all some useful ways to describe being ill in English. Do you know any other ways to describe being sick or ill? What do you do when you feel rough or come down with something? Let me know in the comments on the Thinking in English blog or on Spotify, or message me on Instagram. Share your tips and tricks and let's help each other recover from our illnesses. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review or rating, recommend it to your friends, or let me know on Instagram. My Instagram is Thinking in English Podcast. The link should be in the description. And make sure you check out the Thinking in English blog. I love hearing from listeners, and I really appreciate all of the messages I have received over the past few months. Feel free to send me a message or give me some advice or recommend a topic. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.